recording this on the first day of fall, aka Hobbit Day. I don't actually know if those are usually on the same day, but September 22nd is Bilbo and Frodo's birthday. I feel really ready to film this video. Got my pumpkin spice candle, little maple branch over there, sunflower. I turned Suni Pup to his skeletal, more Halloween-like form for this one. And I have tea with plenty of honey because in true back-to-school fashion, me and my entire family caught colds. So I'm going to try to keep this video short so my voice can last through the whole thing. And I might not have even filmed today, but I'm really behind on my content and it's fall. I want to do the fall video. It's one of my favorite ones. I also feel like I've had a really good reading year so far, so I have a lot of good books to choose from for the book tag questions. So let's go into the first one. In the fall, the air is crisp and clear. Name a book with a vivid setting. I had a book picked out for this, and then I started a book yesterday that I stayed up way too late to also finish yesterday. To be completely honest, I read a few pages the night before, but close enough that I would have read the whole thing in one day. It's the one good thing about being sick, I guess. Sit around and read. So the book I first had picked out for this one is The Adventures of Amina Al-Sirafi. And if you've watched my review and my wrap-up from when I read this, you've heard me say it, like the Arabian Nights meets Pirates of the Caribbean. Beautifully done nautical book with magic, and then the farther in you get to this book, the more magical it gets and the more vivid the setting. And then the second one that I'm adding in because I finished it, This Is How You Lose the Time War by, and I hope I say this right, Amal El-Motar and Max Gladstone. Which reminds me, I forgot to say the author's name of this one, Shannon Chakraborty. So this is not just one vivid setting, it's many. This is a time and space travel book, so the two main characters, Red and Blue, are never just in one place or time. And the way things are described use a lot of sensory information. Lots of ways that things would feel, smell, bright colors, especially in the reds and blues. From far back prehistoric times with dinosaurs to far-flung future and astronauts in space. I do not have a review out for this one yet. I'll hopefully be making that soon. But if I, as a slow reader, could read it mostly in one day, taking into account the fact that I could read for most of the day, it'd be really easy to squeeze in amongst other books. And then this one I have a review and a character video. My plan is to link all videos I have of the books I mention in the description. So if one of these sounds interesting, you can go check out the video for it. Next question. Question 2 is, nature is beautiful, but also dying. Name a book that is beautifully written but also deals with a heavy topic like loss or grief. That actually could have been several books that I read this year. I picked 2. The first one is Arch Conspirator by Veronica Roth. She is probably most famously known for the Divergent series, but this year I read 2 of her novellas. This one, which is a retelling of Antigone, but told in a far future sci-fi like post-apocalyptic world. And I think in a lot of the details she actually is very accurate to the original story, which I didn't read fully, but looked up enough of it to see that she was following the same basic storyline of what happens. But there's some very heavy stuff. There's some family loss. There is a deep struggle to decide what is right. And it's not a book that gets happier as it goes. Also a very short and easy read to squeeze in amongst other books. And the second one that I chose for this is The Sword of Kaigen by M.L. Wong. This one had a writing style that I was not sure about at first. I do have a review and a character video, so I don't feel like I need to talk too much about it. The things that were a little bit weird were some of the pacing and how the story arc happened, but it was a very well done book, and it dealt with a lot of heavy loss and grief, definitely from the perspective of what a woman might be more likely to go through, which spoke to me and I think would for a lot of the female audience that reads this. Better to die sharp in war than to rust through a time of peace. Question 3. Fall is back to school season. Share a non-fiction book that taught you something new. I confess, I don't think I read a single non-fiction this year. I started a couple of them, one having to do with parenting, and I don't know, I guess I just didn't seek out that type of book this year yet. I say yet. I don't know that I plan to before the end of the year either. If something stands out to me, I will. Alright, question 4. In order to keep warm, it's good to spend time with the people we love. Name a fictional family or household or friend group that you'd like to be part of. So when you mostly read fantasy, sometimes that's a hard question to answer because a lot of fantasy main characters are orphans, or they go through a lot of trauma to get through to the next side of their story arc. But for this one, I went ahead and wrote down 2. And I think both of these books also come in to answer another question later on. The first one is the Pinecone Coven from the Spellshop. The Pinecone Coven is just a group of characters who get together and work together to make these little pinecone spells that are going to help their island start to survive and flourish a little better. But what I liked about it really was that it was just a group of women, not all of them completely human, who just got together and ate snacks and drank tea and visited while they did a craft together, and that sounds lovely. That's by Sarah Beth Durst. And the second one, actually, I think I'm gonna say The Bloodsworn from The Shadow of the Gods. Maybe more so from the second book, The Hunger of the Gods, because by then you've gotten into a little more of how the group lives together, fights together, supports each other. They are very tight-knit. They know that their survival is dependent on each other. They travel together, they eat together, they tell stories together. So while I might not like all the bloodshed that happens when they go on missions, I do like how close the characters are to each other. Next question. And we're halfway. Question 5. The colorful leaves are piling up on the ground. Show us a pile of fall-colored spines. Last year, I don't think I made any effort to make this fall color palette based off of books that I had read that year. This year, it's all books from 2024. And I must say, I had a very autumnal vibe going on with these colors. I also think I had Dune on here last year, but I didn't read it last year. I read it this year, and it's just beautiful. I kind of love how fall leafy and pumpkin-y these colors are. I'm not going to take the time to go over each one of these, but they will be in my community post from before this video comes out if you want to go back and see the books I chose for this stack. On to question 6. Question 6. Fall is the perfect time for storytelling by the fireside. Share a book wherein somebody is telling a story. Again, I have multiple. First one, the one I finished last night. This is How You Lose the Time War. The 2 characters in this book write each other letters and leave them secretly in a place that only the other person can find. And at one point in their letter exchanges, they share not fictional stories that they're telling each other, but as they're learning to feel connected to the other person, a little more trust, a little more of let me reveal myself to you, they start to share stories from their past. And I felt like that was a really good way to show the human connection they were starting to feel with each other, even when they were across space and time from each other. And then, the one that feels like it goes along with this question a little bit more is the Bloodsworn Saga. In both of these books, I think it's Svick, if I'm remembering the correct character, who likes to tell stories. And it's more of just like, they're like fireside stories told to entertain his friends, told to make them laugh, and you don't necessarily know how fictionalized the story is at first until it gets a little too ridiculous, and then you're like, oh haha. And it really has that feeling of fireside storytelling that just kind of breeds that feeling of connection with his friends. Next, question 7. The nights are getting darker. True. Share a dark, creepy read. So I don't normally read that kind of book. I'm not really into dark fantasy, grimdark, horror, thriller, those kinds of things. So one of them will be a book that I did make a review of with spoilers that I found to be a bit creepy, and that is Earthsea by Ursula K. Le Guin. Oh man, it was not what I expected. And the creepiness came from the fact that for so much of the book there is this dark shadow following Ged. I did not like that. That is part of what I don't want, and part of the reason I choose not to read horror. I don't like that deep, dark, creepy feeling. So if you're looking for like a teen fantasy that has a little creepy vibe, here you go. Earthsea. And then the second one I have not made a video for yet. It's part of my backlog of content that I will get around to when I have time. And that is Darkblade Assassin by Andy Peliquin. I got about 200 pages into this before I DNF'd because it was a little too dark for me. So my DNFing this deciding not to continue is not so much because of how well done I thought the book was, but more just a matter of my taste. This is a dark fantasy. It starts dark and grim and bloody, and then it stays that way. So I actually think it's pretty well done, and if you like a darker flavor to your fantasy, you might like this one. The main character is the hunter, and there's something mysterious about him. He can heal from his wounds. He doesn't remember where he has come from. There is not clear-cut morality in this. There is no obvious good versus evil. There's just powerful people and who they choose to kill. And the hunter has his own set of morals that he chooses to follow. So, dark, creepy. Next question. I hope I didn't say that last question was question 8, because this one is question 8, and it's far more pleasant. And that is, the days are getting colder. Also true. Name a short, heartwarming read that could warm up somebody's cold and rainy day. For this one, I have 3. I'll be short on each of them. I personally would classify all 3 of these as cozy fantasy, whether they were written for that purpose or not. That's how I felt reading them. They gave me the warm and fuzzy feeling that I would expect from cozy fantasy. The one I read earliest in the year was Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands. I have a review, and I think I have a character video for this one. I just love Emily, and if you have not read the first one in this series, it is not too late to start that. Get caught up on this one before the 3rd one comes out soon. I love how in this one she and other characters are off exploring and trying to solve a mystery, trying to find a door to fairyland, and Emily is one of my favorite characters. That's by Heather Fawcett. The next one I read over the summer and has already been mentioned in this video, The Spellshop by Sarah Beth Durst. This one was just so sappy and happy and good feeling. And interestingly, in another booktuber's fall tag video that I watched, she had this one under the beautifully written but deals with loss and grief question, which, to be honest, yes, it does. But it also has really cozy and happy moments, and I loved reading it. And the 3rd one that I have for this question, and the one I most recently read and have a review and character video for, is Majesty's Dragon by Naomi Novik. I absolutely loved this one. I know the question specifies a short, heartwarming read. I mean, none of these 3 are like epic fantasy 600-page books. This one's more in the 350-page range. This one made me feel so many feels. The relationship between the human and the dragon made me feel so happy, also made me cry. It's one that I don't know why it took me so long to read. I don't know. I've been eyeballing it for a while, it's been on my shelf for a while, and when I finally read it, it brought so much joy to my heart. And hopefully the next time I film a book haul video, it will include at least the next couple books in this series. 2 more questions. Question 9. Fall returns every year. Name an old favorite that you'd like to return to soon. I'm happy to say I have already started that journey. A book / 2 books that I have long said are a couple of my favorites, that I have not read since starting a booktube channel, since reading more critically, and I've been afraid to read them in case they weren't as good as I remembered. Magician by Raymond E. Feist. I have the version where it's split into 2 books, Magician Apprentice and Magician Master. These are books that I generally feel like reading around this time of year, and I was going to wait a little farther into September, but I got impatient. I DNF'd one of the other books I was reading, and I just started. So I've already finished the first one, Apprentice, and I will be honest, even though I can more easily see the faults in it, I still enjoyed it. I will make a video on these once I finish this one, Magician Master, because there are more things I would like to say about it. It is very classic high fantasy, very Lord of the Rings inspired, kind of medieval, but instead of just that one medieval setting, there is travel between this world and an alien world. And then once you get into Magician Master, you get more of the alien world side of things, which I really enjoy, and which you see more in the Mistress of the Empire trilogy that he wrote with Janie Wirtz. So this morning I read the first chapter of this one. This is the one I feel more nostalgic for, because back in high school I read this one before the first one. But now that I'm reading this one, it's like bringing back all those feelings from when I first read it in high school, and I'm hoping that I still like the rest of it. And I'll just say right now, before I go in and make a review of these, my biggest problem is the women, how they're written and how they're handled. But I'll go more into depth in that later. On to the last question. Question 10 is, fall is the perfect time for cozy reading nights. Oh yes! Share your favorite cozy reading accessories. So last year I had fun with this question and I brought up the hand crocheted blanket that I made. I brought up my cat who loves to sit with me when I read. I don't have that kind of energy today, but I will say if I'm going to cozy up to read, a soft and warm blanket and some kind of warm drink are the best. So in the description of this video, I will put links to all the videos I've made of the books I have mentioned. I'll put a link to my Patreon and to my Instagram. Thank you to my patrons as always. Now I'll go rest my voice and hopefully sound a lot less nasally for the next video. Thanks for sticking with me through this one. Happy reading. Bye.